Hello, I am Richard A. Boxall, and this is my short and almost daily podcast in which I chronicle my life and attempt to be a writer by writing daily-ish.
You're listening to the diary of a wannabe writer, Season 3.
Hello, it's Monday the 29th of June 2026. Welcome to the show. Well, this is an unusual podcast for me because, I'm a little bit drunk. Not like sort of falling over drunk or anything stupid like that, but I've unusually finished a flight and had a couple of whiskies and stuff, which I don't normally do, but I just kind of felt like I needed it after the very long flight, which I really enjoyed, actually. So, as you all know, I've got a problem with my hip. My hip is quite painful, which makes it just makes sort of daily stuff quite painful rather than difficult. I mean, at the moment I can do everything I need to do, but when I've been on my feet on and off for 12 hours, it's sore. And so, so we flew from Heathrow. So when did I speak to you last? Oh, yes, I was about to drive into Heathrow. So I drove into Heathrow. I did the flight. So it was scheduled to be, well, the flight crew told us it was going to be 12 hours and 42 minutes. And I think it ended up being about 10 minutes more than that because we had a very weird routing into Singapore kind of over Malaysia. But it was fine. And so we landed and it was all lovely. Passengers were lovely. I'm not going to say which cabin I worked in, but it was fine. And then we all got on the crew bus. And what was quite vaguely amusing is there was some road signs which told us about traffic situation. And the exact wording, and I think I took a photograph of it because it really kind of made me laugh, was it said, massive jam, because there'd been some kind of crash on the route, and it's the something expressway. I need to look it up, but it's the PIE, and the E stands for expressway. So it took us a lot longer to get from the airport to our hotel than it would normally, but that's fine. And I'd actually bought, so we're allowed to buy some alcohol items, and I don't normally bother, but today I did buy a little bit of Johnny Walker from, we call it crew purchase, and I did buy that. And what often happens is the crew, when we get to a destination, particularly after a really long flight like this one, we'll all meet up, and I was so tired and my hip was so sore that I wandered down to the local supermarket. I bought some fruit, I bought some nuts, I bought some yogurt, I bought some fruit juice, and then proceeded to have the alcohol that I'd purchased with a bottle of Coke Zero, and then that was about it. I listened to yesterday's podcast. I listened to yesterday's music podcast. Now, this, which is just irrelevant rubbish of me talking nonsense for 6 minutes, is getting a lot more listeners to my far superior podcast, which is available also on Spotify and Apple Music and all the others. It's called the Unofficial British Artists Top 20. And in that, I do a top 20 chart that's only of British artists. I do news about British artists. And I tend to do an album review, which this week I cover the new Muse album, which is called The Wow Signal. And I got here and kind of, because I'd recorded it on Saturday, but it wasn't scheduled to be released until today, I saw that it was there, so I got to the hotel. I bought myself a few bits and pieces to drink, that I just mentioned, and then I listened to it, and I'm really pleased with it. So if you do not listen to the Unofficial British Artists Top 20, I would absolutely beg you to do that, because if you like music, which I'm really starting to enjoy music a lot. I've always liked music, but I'm really getting into it a lot more than I used to. I didn't realise how much British stuff there was out there. So in the show notes for the episode that came out today, there's a playlist of all 42 new British singles that were released on Friday. Now, obviously, there'll be stuff in there you don't like, but there's 42 bloody songs, so there's a very good chance there'll be some stuff in there that you really do like. I'm getting quite frustrated how few British artists are doing well in our own territory at home. I mean, I've made a list of the 42 tracks that were released last week, and I think I said in the podcast, there's only going to be one or two that enter the chart, which is kind of criminal because there's some really good stuff in there. I mean, as I say, we have some rappers in this country, and I can think of immediately people like RD and oh God, who's the other guy? Central C, and yeah, and yet there's no female rappers that seem to be charting. So there's a couple in that top 40 that I've listed. There's some really good stuff in there. So if you go to my other podcast, the Unofficial British Artist Top 20, in the list, in the show notes, there's a link to the current top 20 and the current new releases. I urge anybody who's listening to this to maybe have a listen to those, because there's some really good stuff in there. Anyway, I'm very, very tired. Although it's about 3:15 in the afternoon as I record this in the UK, it's 10:15 in the evening in Singapore. I debated about whether I should sleep and then record the podcast, but I thought if I did that, there's a very good chance the podcast won't happen. So I'm going to go to sleep very shortly. Tomorrow's podcast will hopefully see me have done some writing and a few other bits and pieces. But thank you so much for listening. I hope this was coherent. I think it was, despite the amount of Johnny Walker that's gone down my gullet. So thank you for listening. Take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. I will talk to you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by me, Richard A. Boxall. Thank you for tuning in to my cogitative considerations, and if you'd like to know more about me or my projects, visit my link tree on linktr.ee/Richard Writes. Capital R, capital W. Thank you for listening.